How has Amazon managed to become one of the most powerful companies in the world?
The flywheel effect.
And is this something that businesses can do today?
Yeah. So let me take a step back and tell you kind of how, we got to this point. Back in the 90s, most of the information related to products in the sales process, the salespeople had that information and they disseminated that information out to their prospects and their existing customers. Probably in the early 2000s, it kind of switched from sales to marketing centric, right? So organizations prior to, say, 2005 were really sales organizations. Marketing was a component, but not a big driver. In the mid 2000s, marketing becomes the main tactic now that companies are starting to use. They're starting to whittle down their sales force and starting to use digital marketing and other multiple marketing channels to go out, and that became the main driver of how they created revenue and grew their business. You fast track to today, and where Amazon came, Amazon was kind of one of the first ones to kind of really adopt, and they're the best example of this flywheel effect. And it's not a sales-focused organization. It's not a marketing-focused organization. It's a customer-focused organization. And the whole theory is that in what Amazon has done, as an example, is, they have this marketplace where vendors are listing their product and consumers are going there to buy, right? So the place that has the biggest options and the most convenient purchasing process are ultimately going to win the day at the end of the day, because consumers are looking in today's world to reduce friction. So there's two things that power the flywheel. There's force. So the more force you apply to the wheel, the faster it goes, right? The more optimized it goes, right? So, and then you have friction. You have what are the encumbrances that are preventing the flywheel from getting enough force? How much friction do we have? Because if the flywheel can't get going because of friction, it's a problem. So if you look at Amazon, they have the most eyeballs going to the stores, most consumers. Why do they have the most consumers? Because they took one of the big things that Amazon did is that one-click purchase, right? So you can go in and pick a product, click a button, and it arrives magically at your door in 2 or 3 days. So they eliminated that friction. So they already had the eyeballs coming. Those eyeballs brought more vendors. More vendors brought more products, now brought more eyeballs. So now you can see it every time a customer buys from them, they're applying force to that wheel, and they're out there sharing their store with everybody else, right? So every time somebody gets a store, they're sharing it with their friends and family. Every time somebody, comes in and uses the one-click purchase for the first time, oh, this is amazing, they tell all their friends. So they've focused on putting the customer first, eliminating the friction out of how they buy the product. And what that's done is people will trade, as Mike said, convenience for privacy, right? So we've all kind of, done this in one way, shape, or form, that would said, you asked the question, when was the inflection point where people started to really trust to put their credit card in? And there was always those holdouts, but then, at some point, convenience trumps whatever concerns you have about your data and your privacy, right? So that was a big inflection point as it relates to, just using credit cards online. There was a process that had to happen. But now that we've all kind of resolved ourselves to the fact that, hey, people know who our identity is, and this is really convenient for these businesses to know what I want to order. And now it's taken, multiple steps of a process. And we talked about going to the grocery or buying goods or services from the grocery. Think about, you got to get dressed. You might have to put makeup on if you're a woman, or get respectable looking. You got to go drive. It might be raining. There could be a hurricane. There could be a storm. Or you can stand right from the comfort of your living room, make a couple of clicks, and it arrives. Voila. What are people going to choose, right? So that's how the flywheel works, because the customers are feeding the vendors are feeding the customers, and now Amazon really doesn't have to do anything, and the system is building the business for them. Ultimately, every business wants to get to that point, right? Every business wants to not have to spend marketing dollars because their customers have such a great experience that they're spreading the word for them.
Yeah, and I think in Amazon's case, some of the things that they're doing as far as continuing to evolve with, reducing the friction, it's not just the one-click purchase, but it's also the convenience of having a membership there, so you don't even have to remember any credit cards. You know how it used to, You just have to always type them in. So if you think about what are some of the things that why you wouldn't purchase online? So first was, man, it's a pain in the ass. I got to put this in. I don't trust them. Well, Amazon's got a good secure name now. So if they're like, well, what if I don't like something? They have free returns all the time. They've actually even made it more convenient to where you can just drop stuff off at Whole Foods to return it back. You don't pay anything for it. You just bring it in there with a little preset code. So returns are extremely easy. Yeah. And then the next thing is free shipping. So like if you go buy anywhere else, like anybody that competitors that are doing online, it's a pain in the ass. You're like, oh, here's the price. That's fantastic. But then when you go to the checkout, it's an extra 16, extra 15, extra whatever it is to get it shipped, and then it's not next day. Amazon has made all of that, and it's hard to actually catch up with them because of the network that they've created. Yeah. So those are all of the things that it's not necessarily about promoting themselves to become big or having a better price than anybody else. It's all of those conveniences have added up to create less friction. So they're just a monster. They just continue to roll. And
listen, when you're at that size, their focus is improving that even more. And one of the things they do, which is really interesting, I didn't know this, but when you go on Amazon, and as soon as you put that in your shopping cart, they ship that product to the nearest warehouse to you, just because they're anticipating, they know that if they take that, they must have the metrics, and they understand how many of those people cancel or don't cancel or ultimately buy the product. And, they've got it that in play, that they're trying to get you the product the fastest it can to deliver more than what you expected, right? To over deliver and under promise. And so whenever that happens, there's delight when you think you're getting a package on Friday and it comes in on Tuesday or Wednesday. That creates, an emotional response or feeling from a consumer that connects them more to your brand, because you just like, maybe they had a shitty day and they came home and it's like, man, I'm glad I got this new outfit that I ordered. But they're super focused on that. And when you look back as we get prepared for our launch, think about it from our standpoint. We're going to have these customers that are using our system for marketing, and we'll have thousands of these customers creating campaigns that work really well and help them, return a great profit on things. And we're going to share those stories. So the more people see those stories, the more comfortable they're going to be to come and use a product like ours. The more people that come and use a product like ours, we use the flywheel effect, because now we have larger volume. We can negotiate better pricing with our suppliers. We can pass those prices on. So you can see how this can be applied in a couple of different cases. And there's multiple. The whole direct-to-consumer market vertical was created to eliminate friction, right? Because now instead of going to a mattress store, you're going to buy a mattress. It's almost like buying a car at a car dealership. You got to go deal with a sales rep, and you're doing this and doing that. Casper comes along, and you go online, these great Posturepedic mattresses, you pay for it, it arrives in a box, and you go put it up in your room, right? So you can see how that makes people's lives a little better. They just save people a step if they don't like the process of going and dealing with a showroom, which a lot of people don't like dealing with that.
Okay, so we broke this down with like big companies, but if you're a small business, like if you're a restaurant or something like that, some of the things that you might be able to do to create less friction is as simply as remembering who your customers are. I mean, because that goes a long way. If you remember their order when they come in, like I always reference the norm effect when somebody's coming into Cheers, those kind of conveniences that you have when somebody's coming in. If you know their order, you know what they have. By the time they sit down, your order's already ready for you just because it's right there. And some of those, they have those apps that make it really easy. I know Chipotle does it and stuff like that. But as a local business, find ways to kind of understand your customers' needs. It's just a matter of communicating with them. If it's a boutique and you know what kind of lines are in, you know what kind of clothes they like, and you reach out to them and say, I have these clothes in your size ready for you to try on, why wouldn't they come to your store to kind of look at it? Because you're eliminating the friction. It allows you to create a little bit more momentum than anybody else. Not necessarily you won't get as big as Amazon, but this is stuff that you can steal from that kind of Amazon and that flywheel effect to kind of help you grow your business.
Yeah, listen, it's something, we talk about this all the time, and it can have a bigger impact in certain businesses and maybe less impact the other ones. But really the moral of the story is delighting your customer, whatever that looks like, whether it's the example that Mike gave on a restaurant, whether it's Casper streamlining the process, Amazon doing the things that they did. If you can delight your customers, then, ultimately they should become your biggest advocates. And at some point you should see the effect of that because you have so much goodwill in the marketplace. So it's really about taking the focus. Remember, it was focused on sales in the 90s to early 2000s, marketing focused, and really to, what they're finding when they do these business studies is Amazon really opened a lot of eyes in creating this flywheel effect. And so now and it was based on the customer being first, and treating the customer in such a way that they're going to go out and say positive things about your business. And so, listen, you can't ever lose if you take this approach. I'll tell you this. And although it might not be, Amazon was a overnight success over 20 years. So it took them a while to do these things, but the only way to start is to put those processes in place and start doing it today.